Hey Boxers, this is part 2 in working with user interfaces and the animation editor, and this is what we're going to be finishing up in this video. First thing I want to do is do a quick animation on this play button. It's really easy. There are 3 different types of animations. There's open animations, idle animations, and close animations, and these are different events. When the UI is opening up, these are the animations that you're going to see. So I'm going to go ahead and select my play button here. I'm going to hit the record button, and what I'll do is I'll scale it down. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the 0 frame. There's a total of 40 frames in this open animation. You can set how many frames you would like in the animation. And so I'm going to set the scale down to 0.01 and 0.01 for both the X and the Y direction. So it's going to look like it's coming out of nowhere. And I'm going to change the scale back to 1 and 1 on the 40th frame. So it's going to emerge kind of out of nowhere. And then on the idle animation, I'm going to keep it at the scale of 1. So I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard so that it's going to have a scale of 1 here on the first frame. And then the same thing on the 40th frame, I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard so that it keeps a scale ratio of 1, and then at the 20 marker, then I'm going to make it go up to 1.3 or something like that, or 1.3 on both the X and the Y. And I'm going to hit this little loop button, and we can go ahead and I'm going to take off the record button now, and you can see the type of animation that is happening. And it's a little bit fast, actually. This is a little bit fast for my taste. So I'm going to hit the play button again. I'm going to go over to the frame rate, and I'm going to change it to about, let's do 60. Let's add in an extra 20 frames. Okay, I'll hit enter on my keyboard. I'm going to select these little green markers here, and I'm going to delete them for right now. And I'm going to hit the record button again. I'm going to go back to the 60th frame. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard after I select 1 here for the scale, and then at the 30th frame, that's where I'm going to make it go up to 1.2. I decided 1.3 was a little bit too much, so I'm going to do 1.2 and 1.2. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay, this is looking better. So I'm going to take off the record button now. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in an animation that is going to lead into our game. I'm going to add in some frames. So I think I'll do about 20 frames. I'll add those in. I'll hit my enter key, and you can see that the 20 frames have been added. So I'm going to drop in my white image right now. I'm going to stretch this out across the entire screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the screen fade to white when the play button is hit. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to hit my record button, and at the 20th frame I want it to have an opacity of 1, so I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard while the opacity is still at 1 right now. And then at the 0 frame I'm going to change the opacity to 0. So this is what we're looking at right now. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to hit my preview button, and oh, looks like it's not working. Okay, cool, let's do some troubleshooting. So at the open of this image right now, it's still staying as opacity of 1. So what I need to make sure is I need to make sure that during the open animation that this has an opacity of 0. During the idle animation, it needs to have an opacity of 0. During the close animation, it needs to change to 1. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that this is at an opacity of 0 here at that point, and then at the 20th frame it should fade to 1, so I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. So now there's one more thing we need to do. We need to go back to our mind map, go into our 3D world here, and I'm going to take the white image and I'm going to make it fade out, fade away. So what I'll do is I'll have this right here. This is our world UI. What I'm going to do on the open animation is I'm going to take it from a 1 here in the beginning on the first frame. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard and make sure that the opacity is at 1 here on the first frame. And then on the 20th frame, actually I'm going to change it to 20 frames instead so it happens a little bit faster. I'm going to change the opacity to 0. So it should send the player right back into the game. Now let's go ahead and let's go back to our mind map and back to our main menu UI, and okay. Let's see the finished product here. I'm gonna hit the preview button. You can see that we've got the play button. It kind of comes out of nowhere, it scales up, and then it has this nice idle animation, so it draws your attention towards the play button, so the character, the player, is going to jump into it real fast. So you hit the play button, it fades to white, and then you're in the game. And it looks really, really cool. This is really clean. But there's a few more things that we should do to really polish this up, and let's do those things right now. So let's do a cool animation that's not a scale animation, but a position change. So what I'll do is I'll have this life logo image. I'll have that drop in from up above. So let's go ahead. I've got the life image selected here, and I'm actually going to move this up here on my view hierarchy and my layer hierarchy here so that I can access it really easily. So I've got my life image selected here, and what I'm going to do is at the open animation, I'm going to make sure that I've got my record button turned on, and I'm going to keep the frames at 40 frames. And I'm going to make sure that I've selected the 40th frame, and I'm going to go over here to my position, and I'm going to just hit enter on my keyboard, and that creates a little marker there for me. Now the other thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to 0. I'm going to go back to the 0 frame. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to hold shift down on my keyboard, and this allows me to move this object directly up above. So it's moving straight up, and then as the animation plays, it's going to move downwards. So let's go ahead and hit the play button so we can see. Okay, cool. That looks really, really cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this record button now, so I'm not recording. I don't make any mistakes. And one other thing I wanted to show you real quickly, this is a really cool feature in the animation editor, and this is how the pro users can really dial things in and get things exactly how you want. There's this little arrow over here on the right, and what this does is it opens up the full scope of what the animation editor can do. You see here that we've got our marker right here at the 0 frame, and we've got a marker here at the 40th frame, and we have this nice curve that we've got here in the middle, and we can change the curve so that the animation plays a little bit differently. So you see this little orange circle here, this little marker? We can go ahead and take this and lift this up and give the animation a little slight curve. So I'm going to do that for both the position in the X and the position in the Y. I'm going to do a little bit of an ease in and ease out. So I'm going to go over here to position Y next because I had position X earlier. And then with the position Y, I'm also going to make a nice slight curve here. So I'm going to select this frame, and then I'm going to lift this up just a little bit so it's a little bit more exaggerated. One other thing to note is that you can also do this for rotation, for scale in the X direction, scale in the Y, and for opacity. So this is super, super useful. I definitely would mess around with this and tweak your animations so that they're just the way that you want them to be. So let's go ahead and let's minimize this animation editor now, and let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Okay, cool. You can see that it kind of has a much smoother animation. It's not just this straight downwards. There's a little bit of variety in the movement, and that's really, really cool. Okay, so one last time, let's go ahead and let's preview this and see what this looks like in our preview window. Okay, awesome. So the game of life comes dropping in from the top. This is a really cool little animation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to exit out of my preview right now. I'm going to make sure I hit save on my keyboard. I'm going to hit Command S because I'm using a Mac. And you want to make sure that you save regularly with BuildBox. It's a good habit to have. And there's one tiny little thing that we need to do before we can check out our finished product. So you can see that I moved the life logo image up to the top, and when you press play and it does the fade in and out, it still has the life label showing up, and that's not what we want. So we need to take our logo and move it back down below that faded image. And so now when I hit play, you can see that it's going to be really smooth when it transitions into the next scene. You can see that life is also being faded in, and so it looks really, really clean. So this is our finished product, and I gotta say, it looks pretty sweet. So I hope you thought this video was useful. Keep an eye out for more videos soon to come, and as always, keep on boxing.